Manager fired me 3 weeks before my 25-year pension kicked in, saying I was no longer a good fit for company culture. When I asked HR about my pension, they said employment was terminated before vesting period completed. I just smiled and said, "You're absolutely right about company culture." Then I sent everything to the labor board. I'm Robert, 47 years old, and until 3 weeks ago I thought loyalty and hard work actually meant something in the corporate world. I was wrong, but the way I found out and what I did about it has turned into the biggest scandal my company has ever faced. I started working at Henderson Manufacturing right out of high school in 1999. It's a mid-sized company that makes industrial equipment, and when I was hired, they had about 150 employees. The company had a solid reputation, good benefits, and most importantly, a pension plan that vested after 25 years of service. 25 years. That was the magic number that would secure my retirement. The pension was generous too. After 25 years, I'd be entitled to 60% of my final salary for life, plus full health benefits. It was the kind of old-school benefit package that doesn't exist anymore, but Henderson had kept it as a way to retain loyal employees. I worked my way up from the warehouse floor to senior quality control supervisor over the years. I never missed a day unless I was genuinely sick, I stayed late when needed, I trained new employees, and I consistently received excellent performance reviews. I genuinely loved my job and took pride in the quality of work our company produced. The problem started 18 months ago when Henderson hired a new operations manager named Derek Walsh. Derek was 35, had an MBA from some prestigious university, and came from a larger corporation that had modernized their operations. From day one, he made it clear that he thought Henderson was stuck in the past. Derek immediately started implementing changes. He eliminated the company Christmas party to reduce unnecessary expenses. He cut the employee break room budget and removed the free coffee. He instituted new efficiency metrics that basically meant everyone had to work faster for the same pay. Most concerning to me, he kept talking about how the company needed to shed legacy costs to remain competitive. I had a bad feeling about what legacy costs meant, but I kept my head down and did my job. I figured if I just continued to be an exemplary employee, I'd be fine. I only had 3.5 years left until my pension vested. Derek seemed to have a particular problem with me from the start. He would question my decisions in front of other employees, second-guess procedures I'd been following successfully for years, and generally treat me like I was incompetent. When I tried to explain why certain quality control processes were important, he'd cut me off and say things like that's not how we do things in the modern business world. The situation got worse when Derek hired his nephew, Tyler, as a management trainee 6 months ago. Tyler was 22, fresh out of college with a business degree, and had zero experience in manufacturing or quality control. But Derek immediately started grooming him for leadership roles and having him shadow various department heads. I tried to be welcoming to Tyler and offered to teach him about quality control processes. The kid was actually pretty smart and seemed eager to learn, but it became obvious that Derek had bigger plans for him than just training. 3 months ago, Derek started documenting every minor issue he could find with my work. If I was 5 minutes late coming back from lunch, he'd make a note. If I questioned one of his new procedures, he'd write it up as resistance to change. If I suggested an improvement to a process, he'd frame it as failure to follow established protocols. I could see what was happening, but I didn't know how to fight it. I'd never been in trouble at work before, and suddenly I was getting written up for things that had never been issues in 24 years of employment. 2 months ago, I requested a meeting with Derek to address the situation directly. I told him I felt like I was being targeted and asked if there was something specific I could do to improve our working relationship. His response was chilling. "Robert, the truth is that you represent old thinking," he said. "Henderson needs to evolve to survive, and that means making some hard decisions about personnel. Employees who can't adapt to change become liabilities." I asked him if my job was in jeopardy, and he said, "That depends entirely on your ability to embrace the new direction of this company." I left that meeting knowing I was in trouble, but I didn't know what to do about it. I contacted our union representative, but Henderson had eliminated the union 5 years before Derek arrived. I considered talking to HR, but our HR department consisted of one person, Janet, who reported directly to Derek. 3 weeks ago, everything came to a head. Derek called me into his office on a Friday afternoon and told me that Henderson was restructuring the quality control department and my position was being eliminated. "This isn't personal, Robert," he said, not looking me in the eye. "It's just business. The company is moving in a different direction, and unfortunately, your role no longer fits our operational model." I asked about severance and was told I'd receive 2 weeks' pay, which was the minimum required by law. When I asked about my pension, Derek said that since my employment was being terminated before the 25-year vesting period, I wouldn't be eligible for benefits. "But I'm 3 weeks away from 25 years, I said. "I understand that, and I'm sorry about the timing," Derek replied. "But the decision was based on business needs, not your timeline." I knew he was lying. This wasn't about business needs or restructuring. This was about eliminating an expensive pension obligation by firing me just before I qualified for benefits. But instead of arguing or getting emotional, I just nodded and said, "You're absolutely right about company culture, Derek. Henderson has definitely changed." He looked relieved that I wasn't going to make a scene. "I'm glad you understand. We'll have Janet process your final paperwork on Monday." I cleaned out my desk that afternoon while Derek watched from his office. As I packed up 24 years worth of personal items, I noticed Tyler sitting at a desk nearby, reviewing quality control manuals. When I asked him what he was working on, he said Derek had asked him to familiarize himself with the QC processes for a new project. It all clicked into place. They weren't eliminating my position, they were giving it to Tyler. Derek was firing me 3 weeks before my pension vested so he could hire his nephew into my job without having to pay my benefits.